Welcome, Bob, and thank you for this morning. What inspired you to participate and all about the spirit of harmony?
I think over the course of my working life, which has been by and large in the Washington political scene, what I've lived is growing disharmony. We've gotten so good at disagreeing, not just disagreeing, but demonizing the people we disagree with, that it's pulling our country apart. And as I look around the world, we're not the only ones. And it seems to me that the only force that's powerful enough to pull us back together is a commitment to love. And when I think about harmony, for me is more of a result than an input. Harmony is what results when we engage each other in a loving, respectful way that recognizes the sacred dignity and worth of every human being. And so this, for me, is the most serious topic for our day, because I think unless a critical mass of us really commit to engaging the world from this place of love, we're not going to find the solidarity to really be able to step up to the big problems like climate change or income inequality or any of the things that are really threatening to pull our societies apart.
We've spoken about the polarization in politics. Where's our hope in getting love into the discussion and the beliefs and values?
Well, we're actually doing that in a very practical, on-the-ground way in the context of what's happening in the polarization of American politics. And I'm quite optimistic, in fact, because what I found, particularly in the aftermath of our 2016 presidential campaign, is that thoughtful people I talked to on both sides realized that the polarization and toxicity of our common life has gotten to the point where it really is an existential threat to our democracy. That if we continue like this, our children and grandchildren are not going to enjoy anything like a flourishing free society. So what I'm finding is that both at the community level and at the national level, people who have been committed hyper-partisans for decades, really on the left and the right, are realizing that they just cannot in good conscience continue to do that. It's really what your Prime Minister said in her welcoming remarks this morning, that it's nice to feel like you're ideologically pure if you're on the left or the right, but if that ideological purity is destroying our ability to find common ground, it's no longer morally responsible. So it seems to me that the fundamental issue facing all of our democracies is how do we overcome that polarization? So the critical challenge is bridging and reconciling these divides. And I think the reason for optimism is that anybody that's awake realizes we can't go on like we are.
Yeah. So what are the tools if you're in terms of the governance in corporate culture, for example?
Well,
what are the tools to the leaders of the world?
Well, I think the first imperative is for us as leaders ourselves to come to grips with our own shadow, if you want to put it in those terms, the extent to which we're being driven by our own ego and fear and sense of separation, and to realize that we can't expect the culture or other people to engage in a more constructive way until we commit to doing the inner work ourselves to be able to engage from a place of wholeness and solidarity and love. And so, we have huge resources. This is not anything new. All the great spiritual traditions have confronted this this inner conflict between ego and commitment to the other. And all of them have developed powerful spiritual practices, prayer, meditation, loving kindness meditation, that if we just commit to them over time, really will open our hearts. And so I think the first challenge is that inner work. And so at our organization, big thing we think about is how can we inspire and then support growing numbers of people in committing to this lifelong challenge of profoundly opening our heart to the world, to each other. And we're focused on both place-based supports in the local community, but also the web-based supports. I mean, for the first time in history, we can provide individuals, whatever spiritual path they're on, with access to the resources, to the leaders, the mentors, that can nurture them in their own spiritual journey. And so how do you develop an ecology of institutions and resources that intentionally nurture the loving development of all of us?
With the outcome of peace? Worldwide, or?
With the outcome of peace, but with the language I usually use is flourishing. That's our dream for our children, for our grandchildren, and it should be our dream for all children, that we together create a culture and social institutions that nurture that universal flourishing of every individual and of the natural world. And so I think that when I talk about love, I'm not talking about something soft or something that's just between individuals in an intimate context. I'm talking about a commitment to doing the hard work to create a society that starts from recognizing the sacred dignity of every person and builds the institutions and the culture that can nurture that. And so I think when we take that perspective and look at our current social order, we see a lot of work across all of the important sectors, whether it's education or healthcare or media or culture. So wherever we are, I think we have the opportunity to help create that culture of flourishing.
What do you think of the importance then coming together and attending a forum?
Well, we work with this hypothesis that there's a powerful force that's pulling on all of us to realize that humanity is ready and needs to take this next big step in our spiritual evolution. But that the critical challenge is finding each other so that we can coalesce into a global movement for spiritually grounded personal and societal transformation. So a forum like this is just a precious thing because it literally has drawn an amazing group of passionate leaders from all over the world who are brought together by this shared commitment or shared vision of a world based on love. And I think the friendships and the sense of community that emerges from a gathering like this is just tremendously important because we will find ways to work with each other, to support each other, and each of us brings our own networks to this. And so when you have the opportunity in a gathering like this to connect all of those separate networks. You've created a web that is very powerful.
Well said.